December 2nd, 2001. Enron employees show up to work and find the doors locked. Security guards are handing out cardboard boxes. You have 30 minutes to clear your desk. Ken Lay and Jeff Skilling, the two men who ran this company, had already cashed out over $200 million in stock. The 20,000 people carrying those boxes? Their retirement accounts were locked. They couldn't sell a single share. By the time those boxes hit the parking lot, their savings were worth nothing. And nobody went to prison for it. That's what this investigation is about. You've heard the name Enron. You probably think you know this story. You don't. Not the full story. To understand how Enron destroyed the retirement savings of 20,000 people, you need to know three things. First, Enron was not an energy company. It was a machine designed to move money from employees and investors into the pockets of its executives. Second, every institution that was supposed to catch this, the auditors, the banks, the SEC, either looked away or actively helped. Third, there is a document that was never fully covered by the media. A document that proves the CEO knew everything, 6 months before the collapse. We found it. We're going to walk through it, line by line. On August 15th, 2001, 6 months before the collapse, one person inside Enron put everything in writing. She was a vice president. She sent a memo directly to Ken Lay. The opening line read, "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals." She named the schemes. She named the people, word for word. Ken Lay read that memo. He called his lawyers. And then, he did nothing. We'll come back to that memo, the exact words, the exact names she listed. And there's one more thing you need to know, something that's never in the headlines. Ken Lay was convicted, but he never spent a single day in prison. The law let him walk. We'll get to that too. But first, let's go back to Houston, 1985, because Enron started as something real. Enron was born from a merger of two gas pipeline companies in 1985. Ken Lay was the CEO. And for the first decade, the business was legitimate. They moved natural gas through pipelines across America. They built infrastructure. They employed engineers. Houston believed in them. This wasn't just a company. It was a source of pride for an entire city. Parents told their kids to get a job at Enron. Employees turned down offers from competitors. You didn't leave Enron. You built your life there. You bought a house because of Enron. You put your kids through school because of Enron. You planned your retirement around Enron stock. Then came deregulation. In the early 90s, energy markets opened up across America. Enron pivoted. They wouldn't just move energy anymore. They would trade it, sell contracts, build a marketplace. The Amazon of energy, they called themselves. By 2000, Enron reported $101 billion in revenue. Fortune named them America's most innovative company, 6 years in a row. Their stock hit $90 a share. Wall Street called them untouchable. The Houston Astros Stadium was renamed Enron Field. Employees were millionaires, on paper. Analysts, journalists, business schools, everyone was studying Enron as a model. Harvard wrote case studies on them. Forbes called them visionary. This was the company that was going to change everything. There was just one problem. Almost none of it was real. So how do you fake $101 billion in revenue? Here's the simplest way I can explain it. Imagine you bet $500 on a horse race that hasn't happened yet, and you're allowed to book that $500 as profit today, before the race, before you even know which horse wins. That's what Enron did, with billions, every single quarter. They called it mark-to-market accounting. The SEC approved it in 1992. Jeff Skilling personally lobbied for it. And once you understand why he wanted it so badly, everything else in this story makes sense. Here's what Enron actually built. Not an energy company. A system. A system with one purpose: make the numbers look good long enough for the people at the top to get out. Jeff Skilling ran the trading operation. He built a culture where asking questions was seen as a sign of weakness. Employees called him the smartest guy in the room. Nobody wanted to admit they didn't understand what the company actually did. Andrew Fastow was the CFO. He built the machinery that hid the losses. Fastow created dozens of shell companies, entities with no real business, no real employees, whose only job was to absorb Enron's debt so it wouldn't appear on the balance sheet. Raptor, LJM, names that meant nothing to anyone outside that boardroom. And here's the part that should make you furious. Fastow didn't just manage these entities for Enron. He personally collected fees from them. $30 million in his own pocket, from companies he was supposed to be running for his employer. The board approved it. But none of that is the worst part. Here's the worst part. If you had a 401k in 2001, if you had any retirement savings at all, you were being told the exact same thing that Enron employees were being told. Your company's stock is solid. Buy. Hold. Don't panic. For Enron employees, it wasn't advice. It was a trap. Enron's matching contributions to the 401k plans were made in Enron stock. Over 60% of some employees' retirement accounts was tied up in a single stock, their own employers. And on October 26, 2001, the company imposed a lockdown. Employees couldn't move a single dollar, couldn't sell a single share. The window was shut. Between October 16th and November 19th, 34 days, Enron stock fell from $30 a share to under $12. 2/3 of whatever was left, gone, while employees watched, without being able to do anything. But Ken Lay could sell. It's September 26th, 2001. Ken Lay is holding a company-wide online forum with Enron employees. Here's what he tells them. These are his exact words from the court transcripts. The company is fundamentally sound. My personal belief is that Enron stock is an incredible bargain at current prices. He urges them to hold. He tells them the third quarter is looking great. He suggests they tell their family and friends to buy in. By that point, Ken Lay has already sold $70 million in Enron stock back to the company. Jeff Skilling has sold over $60 million. The employees held. The executives sold. That is not a business decision. That is a theft. And somewhere inside that building, someone had already written down exactly what was coming, in writing, sent directly to the CEO. We'll get there. Okay, stop. Forget the numbers for a second. His name was Charles Prestwood. He worked for Enron's predecessor company for 33 years. 33 years. He saved everything he could. He did exactly what they told him to do. When Enron collapsed, his retirement account, $1.3 million, went to zero. He testified before Congress. He said, "When you are in the home stretch of a race and your horse has been 6 lengths ahead from the start, why switch horses?" He was not the oldest employee. He was not the most senior. He was just the most average. And that's exactly the point. There were thousands of Charles Prestwoods. So how does a $101 billion company collapse in 4 months? It starts with one resignation. It's August 14th, 2001. Jeff Skilling quits as CEO. 6 months into the job, he cites personal reasons. On Wall Street, CEOs don't quit for personal reasons. Analysts start asking questions. 1 month later, Fortune magazine runs a story. Simple headline: Is Enron overpriced? The reporter is Bethany McLean. She does something nobody on Wall Street has bothered to do. She reads the financial statements. She can't figure out how the company makes money. She calls Enron and asks. Jeff Skilling tells her she's unethical for raising the question. That's when the SEC opens an investigation. And that's when the documents start disappearing. Arthur Andersen, one of the most prestigious accounting firms in the world, the Big Five, the firm corporations trusted to certify their numbers. Andersen had been Enron's auditor for 16 years. They signed off on everything, every quarter, every year. And their lead partner on the Enron account, a man named David Duncan, makes a decision. Now, how do you destroy 16 years of evidence? You don't hide it, you shred it. Duncan orders document deletions company-wide. Andersen employees are shredding. Not a file, not a box. Tons of documents. Physically. Shredders running overtime across multiple offices. They didn't just look the other way during the fraud. They actively helped bury it. Arthur Andersen, a 90-year-old institution, destroys itself trying to protect Enron. Convicted of obstruction of justice in 2002. Dissolved. 85,000 employees around the world, London, Tokyo, Sydney, Chicago, people who had nothing to do with Houston, lose their jobs. But they miss one thing. I want to stop here for a second, because what you're about to hear is the part that changes everything. I've read the original memo, the 7-page document sent directly to Ken Lay on August 15, 2001. It's in the Congressional record, every word of it. And what's in there is not a vague warning. It's a blueprint, a precise, documented, named blueprint of exactly how Enron was going to collapse. Sent to the man who had the power to stop it, 6 months before 20,000 people lost everything. Here's what it said. Her name was Sherron Watkins, Enron Vice President for Corporate Development. It's August 15, 2001. She sits down in front of her computer. She types 7 pages to Ken Lay. She names the shell companies. Raptor. LJM. She explains exactly how they're being used to hide debt. She lays out how the structure will collapse the moment outside investors look closely. The opening line? I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She doesn't go to the press. She doesn't go to the government. She goes straight to the CEO because she believes someone at the top will want to fix it. So what does a CEO do when he holds the proof of his own company's fraud? Here's what Ken Lay does. He picks up the phone. He calls his lawyers at Vincent & Elkins, the same firm that had already approved many of the transactions Watkins was questioning. Vincent & Elkins deliver their conclusion. Concerns noted. No further action necessary. Watkins is quietly sidelined. The memo is classified as confidential. Ken Lay had the answer in his hands. 7 pages. Her name on it. He chose the lawyers. He chose the money. He buried it. 2 months later, Enron announces a $1.2 billion write-down. The stock enters its final collapse. That memo becomes Exhibit A when Congress investigates in January 2002. And by then, it was too late to stop. Here's what most people don't know about Enron. Some people did go to prison. Andrew Fastow pleaded guilty, 6 years. Jeff Skilling was convicted, 24 years. Ken Lay was convicted on 6 counts of fraud and conspiracy in May 2006. So justice was served. Case closed. Except, it wasn't. 6 weeks after his conviction, before sentencing, Ken Lay dies of a heart attack in Aspen, Colorado. He is 64 years old. Under federal law, when a defendant dies before sentencing, the conviction is vacated. Automatically. By law. Legally, officially, Ken Lay dies an innocent man. He never spent a single day in prison. The numbers are almost impossible to absorb. $74 billion in shareholder value. Gone. $1 billion in employee 401k accounts. Gone. 20,000 jobs. Gone. The largest bankruptcy in American history at that time. The city of Houston loses its most famous company overnight. Enron Field is renamed. The name scrubbed from the stadium, from the buildings, from the skyline. Jeff Skilling serves 12 years. Released in 2019. He launches a new energy venture. If you want to know what happened to the average Enron employee while Jeff Skilling was rebuilding his career, think about Charles Prestwood. He testified in 2002. He was in his early 60s. He had $1.3 million in retirement savings. Then, zero. When Skilling walked out of prison in 2019, Prestwood was in his late 70s. And he'd spent those years figuring out how to survive. Without the retirement he'd spent 33 years building. That's the distance between what happens to executives and what happens to everyone else. But here's what you never hear about in the Enron story. Sherron Watkins, the woman who wrote the memo, who named every scheme, every shell company, who warned Ken Lay 6 months before the collapse, is named Time Magazine Person of the Year in 2002. She receives no financial reward, no legal protection. She keeps her job until Enron fully dissolves. Just the knowledge that she was right. Andrew Fastow, the man who built the shell companies, who personally pocketed $30 million while employees watched their retirement accounts empty, serves 6 years. Today, Andrew Fastow travels the country giving speeches at business schools. The subject? Ethics. He charges speaking fees. Sherron Watkins warned. She got nothing. Andrew Fastow stole. He got a speaking career. That is the system. So who killed Enron? Not the market, not deregulation, not changing energy prices. Enron was killed by Ken Lay, Jeff Skilling, and Andrew Fastow, who cashed out over $200 million, while $1 billion in employee retirement savings evaporated. The employees who couldn't sell their stock while executives cashed out. The retirees who lost everything they saved. The city of Houston that believed in them. They had the memo. They had the warnings. They chose the money. Every time. And here's what should keep you up at night. The tricks Enron used to fake their numbers, they're still on the books. Modified. Regulated. But nobody banned them. The next Enron is already operating. Somewhere. Right now. You just don't know its name yet. Next, we go inside one of America's oldest companies. An institution that survived for over a century. The Great Depression, 2 world wars, every recession. Then a hedge fund manager bought it and started selling it to himself, piece by piece, over 15 years. The assets went to companies he personally owned. Every transaction was documented. Every transaction was, technically, legal. 250,000 people lost their jobs. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And one question for the comments. Did you have retirement savings tied to a single company stock? Did you know someone who did? Because this story isn't just about Enron. Drop it below. This story isn't finished. Sources linked in the description.